You can only act based out of what you believe is true. And the thing is, everything that we have in our lives right now, whether it's me or any of you guys, that's what we believe true for us. And there's no wrong or right with that, no good or bad. Because me and Mark, for instance, don't believe in any judgment at all, in anything. And so all we say is that our results don't lie.
Welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast, the show that interviews the world's top experts in fitness, nutrition, mindset, and beyond. Let's get into the show.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the Optimum Human. Today's guest, we have Cliff Wilde. Cliff, how the hell are you today, man?
I am frigging excellent.
Awesome. And Claude?
Yes, sir.
How are you today?
I'm probably not as good as Cliff, but I'm probably like 75% of where he is right now.
Perfect. Glad to hear it. So, anyways, Cliff, like to know what is it exactly that you do?
It's a brilliant question. And I've been asked this maybe hundreds of times.
And actually, I hate to cut you off. Let me rephrase that. If you were at a party and somebody asked you, what do you do? What would you respond?
Well, I'll give you the non-ethical answer.
Stripper.
Which is, I take my clothes off. No, I don't. So I take people from, me and Marta, my wife, we take people from fucked to fixed. That's pretty much the easiest way to put it. So in broader terms, I suppose that really boils down to us looking at the physical, emotional side of someone's life and pulling it all together to make them understand where the gaps are and what they get to do in order to make certain choices to improve things. So a lot of people originally come to us because of health issues. Predominantly, I've probably been, touted as, one of the better people after gut health and autoimmune disease and dealing with all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people initially come with physical stuff, but what people struggle to understand is that a lot of it comes down to an emotional start point in how these things come about. So me and Marta, I suppose, take people from a place of being unaware of where the health condition comes from, how it's affecting them other than the symptoms they have, and how that plays out in the rest of their life. And we assist them to basically understand it better, A, but B, then start taking the steps to start releasing, the beliefs and the patterns and the actual issues with their health around it.
Okay, very cool. Now, I guess my next question would be is how did you come to do this? So, generally people, help others with something that they struggled with. What's your story?
So I know we only have a certain amount of time, so I'll give you like the quick slideshow
the Cliff Notes. Oh
yeah,
God, that's bad.
Pardon the pun.
I'm just connecting Brian.
So I was born with an extra vertebrae, so I pretty much spent the first a year solid, pretty much of my life in hospital when I was like just born, and then on and off up until I was 3. I had a very large curvature in my spine called a scoliosis. It was just uncontrollable. So at first they put a rod in to try and stabilize the spine, and then spine went the other way. So then they fused it. I had a double fusion of my middle spine, your thoracic spine, which I basically fused my spine at a 64 degrees curve. So I lost 6 inches of height just from that thing happening when I was first born. So that was probably the first brush with wheelchairs and nearly dying because I flatlined a couple of times when I was a baby. And then when I was 15, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis, which for people who don't know, it just involves going to the toilet and losing lots of blood, just without going into all the graphic details.
It's graphic.
When I was 17, I was diagnosed with a brain tumour. And then when I was 18, after I had the tumour removed, I was diagnosed with meningitis of the brain. There's some other stuff in between, but that's probably the major milestones, if that makes sense.
Holy
So
crap.
pretty much normal upbringing, normal health.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Very,
Health
very
was
average.
spot on for the first 18 years of my life.
That's like amazing that you're talking to us right now. It's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah, like
It's,
I'm
yeah, go on.
sorry. Oh, please, age before beauty. I'll let you speak.
I was gonna say purely from a point of view of the, people say to me why I do what I do, and like the sheer volume and stuff that I went through, it's just making people understand that these things show up for a reason, and that rather than what we're very taught to play, which is the victim mentality of, oh, poor me, I have this or that, whatever it might be, it's what we get to learn, which is good about what showed up, that really helps people move forward, if that makes sense. So like them things all happened, and like Marta always says, like you just talk about them as if they're so blasé, like it's just like you had a cold. And the thing is that if I put, like nowadays, I'll just go off on a tangent slightly, but nowadays we're so overburdened with the amount of stuff we have in our head. So like our energetic space in our head is just so full up with crap. So like paying the bills or relationships or health issues or not sleeping enough. Like we wake up feeling we haven't had enough sleep, right? And we go to bed feeling like we've never done enough. So like we can never win. So
Definitely.
for me, it's one of those things where I'm in a position where I looked at them things and went, well, a few of them were life or death situations. So like, I could only think a certain way about them rather than worry what the outcome could be.
Yeah, you're completely right. A lot of people waste a ton of energy on things that they either can't control or, they can control, but they do nothing. They kind of sit there ruminating, and, it's you're very spot on with the energetic brain use. It's just everybody's scatterbrained.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't sit still without thinking about the next problem or thing on your checklist. And I know that spoke to me right now because I'm thinking about everything and anything, and it just drains you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is that we're all brought up to be that way. Like if you think about the life we live in now is in a place of sacrifice, in fear. That's basically the life we live in, and scarcity. So we don't have enough time. Economies are going on the floor. All these things are fear, sacrifice, like all these scarcity-based mindset mentalities. That's all you see on the news. It's all you read in the newspapers. It's all you see in magazines. It's all you hear perpetuated all over the world. So it's no surprise that people feel so overwhelmed and stuck. It's because all they've been conditioned to their whole life, not even from their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents, but it's what you hear every single day. So, that's why so many people are stuck.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely being bombarded with, I hate to even use the term negative, but, negative messages, and it's somebody else's fault and
Yep.
all this and that. And it's hard to take control of your own mind and take command of your life.
Yeah. Well, most people, like 99% of people, and it offends people, but it is just true. 99% of people play the victim of circumstance card. So it's like, I can't start a business or do what you did because. So, and then that because is something outside of them, like an economy, or I don't live in the right place, or whatever it might be. And it's the same with health. Like I've been symptom medication free from my autoimmune disease for 7 years. And the first thing a lot of people say to me is, well, it's okay for you, but... and then insert their excuse, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and that's exactly it.
Now, have you been there? Have you been in your life where you played the victim?
Yeah, for like 30 years.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right along there with you, man.
Right? The thing is that the reason me and Mark can coach in the way we do and help people get the results they do, change lives and get out of illnesses and, increase money in jobs and all that kind of fun, fancy end result is because we lived it. The thing is that I was, a huge victim mentality when I was suffering with the ulcerative colitis. I was diagnosed at 15. I remember very specific times because obviously that's how we wire our memory, is by an emotional attachment. I remember this one time when I was in sixth form, which that's about 17, 18 years of age, and I was in the UK, and there was nothing really wrong with me on the day. I was on like drugs to suppress the immune system and stuff, so it wasn't all flaring up. So there was nothing technically that wrong with me, and I was walking along and it was fine. But what I remember doing all of a sudden was, as I walked into our sixth form centre, kind of where everyone hung out, I changed my face, like as into like a more kind of sadder face, just because I wanted people to connect with me. And I was like, now I can look back and understand why I did it. Because we as humans, obviously, we work on connection, we work on love, we work on significance, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But back then, obviously, I didn't understand that. All I knew is that I wanted people to talk to me.
Yeah, it's definitely looking for that connection. Not everybody. I'm not saying there is a proper way, even though there kind of is, but a lot of people are kind of looking to reach out and looking for human connection, and some people do it in just ways that push people away or just make people not very comfortable. Now, I just want to backtrack a little bit. So you had all these health issues. Now, how did you get into the health and fitness field?
Well, long story short, so I had obviously the ulcerative colitis from my GCSEs, which was like 15 years of age, 16. And then I had the brain tumour through my A-levels at 17, 18. So basically I did what any child is meant to do apparently, is go through, do my A-levels, go to university, get a degree, get a job. So basically I went to university. I'll be honest with you, I didn't, do that. I done well, but I didn't really do a lot of it. I outsourced most of it. So any of my lecturers listening, sorry. But pretty much I did the least minimum I could to get my degree. And then I went into a job that someone told me I should go into, which was a job in finance.
Oh, the old should word.
Yeah, exactly, right. Should. Yeah, it's banned in our house. But
and you must have loved it off the bat, because it was totally not your idea, right?
Yeah, of course. And the thing is that obviously I was bred into it. It's good money. I could get a nice house, nice car, all this kind of stuff. And back then I thought they were the things that would make me happy, if that makes sense. So, I was about 2.5 stone heavier than I am now. I was on the, steroids, the prednisolone for the ulcerative colitis. I was drinking a lot with friends socially and stuff. And my health was just in a really, really bad place. And then 2008 came along when obviously the whole perceived economy went to crap. And the company I worked for were a very big company, and they got bought out. And basically, I had two options. They offered me a job in one of their London offices, or I could have a payout. And so basically, I just looked at myself, saw I was in a real mess. And for some reason, I was like, I'm going to go and do a personal training qualification. I'm just going to drop it all and leave and go to London and do a personal training qualification. So that's really where it started, because I was just in a mess. Okay,
what inspired you to go into that field? Because it's like sort of like out of left field, going from finance to fitness. A lot of people do it, but I'm just wondering if there was anything specific that triggered you?
I was just in a mess. Like at that point, I'll be really honest with you, I had zero focus on helping anyone other than me. So like the PT was only to see how I could improve my knowledge in order to see if I could help myself.
Okay. Makes sense.
So really, it was actually, and this is how ridiculous we are as human beings. So when I saw the PT thing, obviously our association with PT is people in good shape. And so at that time, I wasn't even thinking about the autoimmune disease I had, because all the doctors had told me that, it's impossible to cure, you can't reverse it, you can't get off steroids, you can only have operations, all the rubbish. And so all I was actually focused on back then was just losing weight.
Okay.
And that was why originally I went into it.
That makes total sense. It's usually, we just had a guest on, Andrew Lynn, and we were talking about how when you're teaching someone and you're learning how to teach, you learn yourself.
Yeah.
So it makes completely sense. I totally get you.
It's what we say to our clients. We can't give to them what we don't have.
Absolutely.
100%. Cliff, before you're talking about taking control. So finding fitness, that's how you ended up taking control of your own fitness. Now, how did you end up changing your eating? Like what caused you to go further? Because personal training certification doesn't necessarily, fix an autoimmune disease.
No, it definitely doesn't.
So how did you gain that knowledge to help yourself, or did you work with a professional?
Yeah. One of the biggest things, I suppose, one of my attributes is just I'm one of these people who picks up an idea and I then adapt it, change it, swap it around, see and seek out really the optimal version of it, if that makes sense. Because very quickly I understood the nutritional information that was in our PT course was just a bunch of shit, basically. It was just, government pushed, eat well, play, food pyramid, however you want to look at it, which is all, funded and blah, blah, blah. So I understood that I'd started looking into my autoimmune disease and some of the more alternative approaches to it. And it was very new at that time. Like back in 2009, there wasn't tons and tons on it back then. So I started just really experimenting because I heard some people say, oh, some foods are not great for you and some are better and some are others are not. So I looked at what they were telling me and thought, right, okay, well, if I just packed in all the McDonald's and all the crap and all the junk food and took 50% of my alcohol intake, the chances are I'd probably see some improvement anyway. So that was kind of how blasé I was with it at the start because I was just uneducated, right? And then from there, there was a gentleman who was on one of our PT courses who was actually a nutritional therapist. And he mentioned to me about a few different ideologies that are more down, I suppose, it would be labeled the alternative route because it's not convention, I suppose. But it was just more about this kind of single food approach, balancing, obviously, your intake based on, your body in itself rather than just what we're told. So like for me, I'm a short ass, I couldn't bang in 200-300 grams of carbs a day unless I was running like an ultra marathon, if that makes sense. It's just not something my body does too well with. So started re-regulating, kind of being a more protein fat-based diet, which is not for everyone, but it was for me at that time. And just getting my carbs from vegetables and such. So it kind of progressed from there. And then I started digging even deeper and started understanding the connections of certain foods and the proteins in them foods and them proteins and how they react in our chemistry. Because I dive very, very deep when I generally dive. And I started understanding that there was probably more going on than what I realized. So it started off as just food, and I got myself, in 6 months, I think, of finishing my PT course, I was off my medication for the ulcerative colitis with no symptoms. But it was still a very grey area at that time.
That's quite amazing. And a lot of people listening, they might be shocked, and to us it sounds silly, but the food you eat has a huge effect on your health. Yep. I mean, to us it's like, yeah, obviously you're an idiot, Claude. Everybody knows that. But the sad thing is, you don't, like everybody thinks McDonald's is still food. They think half the stuff they sell at the grocery market is still food, but it's in my eyes, it's not. It's just it's a way to make yourself sick. So yeah, to find that out, especially nowadays, it's a little bit more common, with the paleo and all this different stuff coming out. It's a little bit more commonplace, going back to what we're supposed to eat, which is real food. But yeah, for sure. Now, you said you worked with a nutritionist.
A nutritional therapist, therapist.
Now, what's the difference between a nutritional therapist and a nutritionist?
A nutritionist is just someone who has a qualification in food. So they've been to maybe a day course or a few day course and basically have been told that these foods, you can still get nutritionists who still push kind of the eat well plates and stuff like this. Not all of them, but some do, if that makes sense. A nutritional therapist, depending, there's obviously, as with any qualification, they go through all different levels of what's decent. But this guy had been through a whole degree, nutritional therapy, and it very much looks at a systems-based approach of the body, and it's very much based on how the body connects and how these different systems obviously can affect each other. So like, for instance, if someone comes to me with adrenal issues or thyroid, I never ever talk to them about those glands because they can never choose what to do. Does that make sense? So I am always looking for the underlying root in what causes them issues to show up rather than the end result that they have. And that was the same with the gentleman who I spoke to. It was even really basics. I didn't do any supplements with him. I didn't do any fancy protocols that we can all run now. He just said, just stop eating so much crap. It was basically that, really.
Yeah, it's a great place to start anyway.
Yeah. Because everyone wants to overcomplicate it to start, right?
Yeah, and that's a fantastic, thing that I also work with my clients on, is getting to the root of the issue rather than dealing with just the symptom.
Yeah. The biggest thing with people is that they believe the symptom is the root, because if you feel like American medicine is very similar to the UK, because obviously the UK just follow American medicine, or anything America does, basically. Well, that's what they say. When America sneezes, the UK gets a cold, right? So,
I like that. Yeah. Although I don't know if I really like that. But
it's sad but true.
Right.
Yeah, sad but true, exactly. So the biggest thing with it is that we live in a mentality of medicine now, and conventional medicine, that we've been built into a quick fix mentality. Like, you have a sore knee, you go to the doctor, they give you anti-inflammatories or a painkiller, and it goes away in like a short period of time. So the human brain association is that it's fixed. But then the reality is when they stop taking them, it comes back. So very much people, obviously, when they come into programs, whether it's weight loss or fitness or health or whatever it might be, they assume naturally, because that's their belief systems, that it's going to happen that quickly as well. That's why obviously all the marketing, the magazines, the TVs are like, lose 6 kilos in 5 weeks, or, I reverse my autoimmune disease in 30 days, and whatever the drastic claim is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's going to sell, the magazine or the product or whatever else it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think a lot of times people, obviously people want a quick fix. Hell, I want a quick fix, but I also understand that, life doesn't work that way, and it takes some time and some effort.
Good things
My
take time.
caveat with that, which is controversial, is that life changes as quick as we believe it will.
I kind of like that. Because if your beliefs are limited, your actions are going to be limited.
Yeah.
So you can't. Sorry.
You can only act based out of what you believe is true. And the thing is, everything that we have in our lives right now, whether it's me or any of you guys, that's what we believe true for us. And there's no wrong or right with that, no good or bad, because me and Mark, for instance, don't believe in any judgment at all in anything. And so all we say is that our results don't lie. So like, if I'm saying I'm aiming for a certain size business, or I'm aiming for a certain level of my body or my relationships or whatever the area is, and I don't have it, then the results are that there is some bullshit underlying story that I'm holding on to at the moment that stops me getting there. But as soon as I realize what that is, that immediately can change when I'm ready to let go of it.
Makes total sense. It's completely right. Now, I've got a question. It's you may laugh at it, you may not. What do you think about cleanses?
Yeah, there's a laugh.
Yeah. I suppose it's my initial response. I know I just didn't say judgment, but obviously that laugh obviously indicates some sort of judgment, right?
There you go.
The way is, I always believe it, is that I always explain to people, because I do my side of the business, I suppose, with Marta, is the physiological side. So I'm the geek, I'm the biochemistry guy, the functional medicine, nutritional therapy, naturopathy, like all of those things I pull into one. And so my belief with this is that, yes, the body does get very clogged up. Like, it gets very, very clogged up. Like, if you want to go into a certain level of depth, we have all the cells in our body, trillions of cells, like 32 trillion cells in our body, right? And all of these cells are surrounded by something called an extracellular matrix, okay? And this extracellular matrix is something that is almost like a protection shield. Stuff can pass through it and stuff can pass out of it. But the thing is, if the cell was unprotected and stuff could just go in and out, like, it would get destroyed very easily. Because obviously we as humans get exposed to a lot of stuff, whether we like it or not. There's thousands of chemicals that are put into the air every year. There are car fumes, there are even the deodorants we put on, or the food that we eat. All of these things add to a certain amount of load.
Yep.
So the body does get overwhelmed. There is no hiding that. But will it all be fixed in 7 days or 21 days or 9 days? Well, just no. And so the thing is that we have our natural systems, we have our kidneys, we have our skin, we have our lungs, we have a digestive system, we have our liver to naturally do these processes. Could they naturally use help? Yes. But are the people who are pushing these cleanses really helping people understand the lifetime change the person gets to make in order to assist all them areas? Rather than just saying, like, because all it really is chasing weight loss. Let's be really honest. When someone says a cleanse, they think weight loss, right?
Yeah.
And all they then lose is like 5, 10, 15 pounds, depending on how over the weight person is in a week. And we know 80% of that is water. So, yeah, right. Unless, they have a hypermetabolism, blah, 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 but it's in the minorities. So we understand that they're not really getting the desired result they want other than the number going down on the scale. And so for me, the cleanse is a false prophecy for someone. Like, I don't use the word cleanse, but I do protocols with people over longer periods of time to help up-regulate certain systems and down-regulate other systems. But it's obviously, again, being born into this quick fix mentality that we all are attuned to.
For sure. And a lot of people believe that a cleanse will clean them out so they can just go back to living the shitty way they were living.
Yeah.
And the thing is, most of these products, at least the good ones, should be used in combination with lifestyle changes. Mm-hmm. And
no, go on, carry on, sorry.
Yeah, and a lot of people just don't realize that. It's just they're not attuned to it. So I'm very happy that people like us exist so we can kind of be like, hey guys, you realize that sleeping better, eating good food, making sure that your micronutrients are balanced, it's important, right?
Well, it's also, the thing is, again, it just comes back to belief systems. The people that, buy into cleanses or buy into, the diets and all the things that they're sold is because they just know no different. Like, and I say to them, like, when people come to us and they're like, I did this and this and I feel really bad for it. I'm like, there's no need to, because did you know it was wrong, or did you know that it wasn't going to serve you at the time? They're like, no, I just wanted to lose some weight or feel better or whatever it might be, right? So, like, I always say to people, I'm like, you will make your choices based out of what you believe true again. So that's all cool, but in the face of evidence of what actually might get you where you want to go, if you then don't choose into that, then that's a conscious choice to go into quick fixes and all the other stuff that's around.
Makes total sense. Now, if Brian doesn't have any questions, do you have anything, Brian? I've got one I'm itching to ask.
Yeah, go for it, man.
All right, it's turning into the Claude hour, but
yeah,
it's okay.
Welcome to the Claude podcast, everyone.
You don't have to sound so bitter when you say that, Brian. All right, so we've been talking and kind of beating around the bushes with fat loss, and a lot of people are probably wondering, what can I do today to help me lose fat? So do you have 2 or 3 things that you recommend to make, like, to most clients? I know you work on an individual basis, but what are 2 or 3 things that most people have screwed up that they need to fix in order to think about losing weight?
Top one is their head.
Their heads. It has to be on their body.
Yeah. So literally, the emotional stress that people put on themselves is one of the biggest reasons they don't lose weight. Like, for people to connect with that in a way that they can take it away and use it, I suppose that way of thinking about it is that in our physiology, we have our adrenal glands, okay? And in our adrenal glands, we produce a chemical or hormone called aldosterone, which is basically responsible for our water and salt balance. So a lot of people nowadays have issues with water retentions and deregulations of their body, okay? So when people have huge amounts of emotional stress going on, like messed up relationships, financial stressors, bodies under disease or dis-ease, as in it's imbalanced, then what happens is that over and over again, these people, they disbalance the adrenals and therefore aldosterone. And what that does is it just puts their body in a place where they're just holding on, like, for dear life. Because the body always wants to find homeostasis, which is a balance, right? So if, for instance, there's that huge amount of stress that someone's not willing to acknowledge in their head, their weight very often is going nowhere. Like, I'll give you an example of a client. We have a client who's very overweight, like 150 kilos when she came to us, right? And we made 0 changes to her diet. And the only thing she did was have a couple of sessions with Marta. And in 10 days, she lost 5 kilos.
Wow.
And that was purely because Marta dug very deep on a couple of beliefs that she had that were just strangling her, basically. All her energy in the day was spent on those things just running round in the head. And we all have those things. Like, it's not to say we sit here and say we don't, but there are things that run round in our heads time after time, hour after hour, minute after minute for some people in the day. And they're the things that make such an imbalance to the physical chemistry of the body. So that's number one.
And sorry, just to piggyback off of that, a lot of these beliefs, at least from what I've found, they can elicit some very emotional responses. Like, people can break down and cry.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, is that common in your practice? Like you dig, you find the root of something, and somebody is just, it's almost like their world is almost turned upside down.
Yeah, of course, because you've got to remember, as human beings, we all want to believe we fit in somewhere. So when someone comes along to you and they challenge a belief that you've held very tight for a long period of time, it's almost like it's an identity. Like, the ulcerative colitis that I used to have was my identity. Like, and I'd say to people, it's fine for you, but I wish you could see what was going on inside me.
Makes total sense.
Right? So, yeah, absolutely. When people get into that position, some people cry, some people get really angry because it feels like a threat to their ego and what they've known for so long, and it almost feels like they've been lied to. Some people just want to curl up into a ball and just deal with it in how they need to deal with it, but that's mine and Marta's job to coach them through that and make them understand that if we can get to a point where everything that ever showed up in our life, we could learn to love it, even as bad as we've labeled it or perceived it. Once you get to that place, then that's freedom, because then you're not trying to protect yourself from anything anymore.
Yeah, right on. Because everything really is a label. There is, in the end, there is really nothing good and bad, one might argue. It's just how we see things and how we put them into boxes that make them good or bad.
Yeah. I could give you some really, really drastic examples of that, like from clients and people that we've known, about good and bad and how things were labelled, and they never knew stuff was good or bad until they had like an interaction at school and someone gave them feedback that it was bad. And all of a sudden their whole world fell apart.
Could you give us a couple of examples?
I could give you a really graphic example, but perfect, in nice words, I suppose. All right, so fair enough. I'll give you one. So there was a girl we know who, from 4 years of age, so this is basically, I'll pre-frame this. So a lot of people get into the self-development world or anything like this, and they do a lot of the surface level bullshit, as I call it, which is just like, oh, do an affirmation, stand in front of the mirror, say I love you, jump up and down, say yes, all this kind of stuff, right? Which is all well and good if the 1% actually get it, but 99% of people, it keeps them more stuck. So what happened is that this girl, for instance, from 4 years of age, she was abused basically by her granddad from like 4 all the way until she was like 12 or 13, okay? And he told her at the time when these things were happening or occurring, which was on a regular basis, that this is what love is, right? And we're all sitting here going, that's not what I understand about love. And everyone who's listening, right, is going, that's disgusting. But this is true, right? So this is what happened with her, and this is how she explained it. She said, well, that's what I believe love was, right? So then the only time that ever changed for her, and she then started believing it might be wrong, was when she shared that experience with someone at school. And then when that happened, her whole world fell apart. And for the next 20 odd years, I think, of her life, 30 nearly, she took that on as shame and guilt and just kept her stuck in her life for a long, long period of time until she learnt to realise it happened for a reason. She wouldn't be the person she is now without that experience happening, etc., etc. So, like, that's a very extreme experience. But, you know, like, if people's association, like, I'll give you an example of an affirmation. So, like, say someone's standing in front of the mirror saying, oh, I love you more every day. I love myself more every day. But their association with love is like their parents splitting up when they were young, all their relationships have ended up in breakup or heartbreak or someone cheating on them or, you know, some sort of anger, then them saying that in the mirror, what are they asking more of?
Yeah, it's like a downward spiral if you
right? And they wonder why more crap shows up in their life.
Yeah, man, just hearing that, I'm like feeling sad, frankly, man. That's such a terrible thing. And I, obviously that's an extreme example, but, you know, it's idea or stuff like that comes up for people, you know, most people.
Yeah, and the thing is that that is one of the biggest things. Like when we deal with ladies, or when we work with ladies in our consulting or masterminds, is so much of the stuff around abuse or sexual shame around experiences comes up over and over and over again. And it's not even like they would have done anything wrong, if that makes sense. But them even being part of it, they labelled themselves as wrong. So they took all the guilt on, all the shame. And it's not to say it doesn't happen with men, because obviously it does, but just overall we see a lot more ladies with it. And the thing is that lady now, she released all that shame, all that guilt. I was actually, me and Marta on a retreat with her. She let all that shame and guilt, and literally her life has exploded in the last like 4 or 5 months.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Now, you mentioned that the sexual things were very common in women. Is there something that, you know, you would say that is the most common thing in men?
The biggest one for men I find very often is giving all their power away. So whether, like, we live in an age where obviously men are told they're not good enough unless they're the breadwinner and they're earning the most and that they're powerful and that showing any emotion is weak and all this kind of crap, right? And women are obviously told the opposite. You can't be provided for. You got to stand up for yourself, equality. You need to be the breadwinner and blah, 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 blah. So what's happening is what's happened really over the last, I suppose, 70 to 100 years or so is that men and women have kind of swapped roles. So like, the woman has become more the dominatrix and the more kind of, not in a kinky way, but the more domineering
Well,
kind
maybe.
of person. Yeah, maybe. Depends on what floats your boat.
Right.
relax, Brian.
So they've become the more authoritarian, if that makes sense, in the relationship. And the guys have kind of settled and sacrificed and gone very internal with their emotions. And so, like, they go and they want to say something, but they don't, for fear of what will come back. Because we as guys have been bred into, and I know I was bred into the, oh, that girl's too good for you, or, you know, you're punching way above your weight, all these kind of sayings that we hear, right? And the thing is that we then obviously do everything we can to not rock the boat. So when we want to say something that doesn't sit quite right with us, we don't say it, and then instantly we've built resentment without even knowing towards that person and that situation.
Hell yeah, that speaks to me.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of the key things that's happened for guys. They've basically given their power away. So we previously, I know this was me, that was very much me for like 30 years of my life, was given all my power away because I was in, I suppose, if you looked at it from a masculine, feminine energy point of view, like masculine energy is the more doing, having, kind of the more forward momentum, if that makes sense. And the feminine energy is more receiving. It's more stand back. It's more willing to accept stuff. So if you look at what happens with guys nowadays, very much they're in more of a feminine energy, and the women are forcing themselves into the masculine energy. And this is why you're seeing so many relationships that are kind of, most relationships, it's controversial, but I believe it to be true, most relationships are born out of an insecurity. So we connect on an insecurity. So I'll give you an idea, completely open, honest about me and Marta. So when me and Marta met in 2009, I just realised that I was really, you know, supported by my folks because of all the illnesses and everything I had in my life. They obviously just wanted to support me, and that's what they knew. But I realised I used that as kind of a leaning stick. So like I knew that I wouldn't necessarily, if I didn't want to properly go full out at life, they'd look after it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I kind of realised that and broke away from it for a while. And then obviously then that threatened me because then I didn't have support. So I didn't have any of this masculine energy to really kind of do it myself because I was always in that receiving because that's what I'd got from my parents for such a long period of time.
You're like in a
And
free
then-
fall.
Yeah, right. So then Marta comes into my life, and Marta had she'll talk about, I'm sure if you guys speak to her, she she had an experience where her dad drank quite a lot when she was young, so never felt like she had a father figure, so felt like she always had to be the one standing up for herself, right? So in that more masculine energy. So what do you think happened when I met Marta the first time? I was like, see this person who's really strong, forthright, outgoing. Like my subconscious is like, yes, perfect support material.
Right.
Right? And that's literally how our relationship started, on that insecurity. But now, obviously, we've grown, understood that, and rebalanced everything. But that's what literally happens. We normally start relationships on insecurity.
Makes total sense.
Absolutely. Now, I'm kind of curious how. Obviously, you two have been able to work through that. Is there a way that you could describe that you two have both been able to work on yourselves to deal with that? Or
one of the biggest things is we heavily invest in ourselves. So like we pay tens and tens of thousands to mentors each year to hold us accountable, if that makes sense, because we know our genius is the physical body and Marta knows her genius is the emotional health. But it's a bit like hairdressers. They don't cut their own hair for a reason. Simply they can't see the back of their own head, right?
Right.
It would look terrible.
I like that analogy.
But it's so true, right? Like me and Marta know how good we are at what we do, but there's also room for our own bullshit stories when we're in it together. So one of the biggest things I always say to people is just get someone to help. Like, it's not a weakness to ask for help. It's not a weakness to share, our perceived shit or crap that we've gone through in our life. It actually makes you stronger for being willing to voice it and let someone have a completely non-emotional attachment view of it and give you feedback.
For sure. And
that's literally what it was for us.
Okay.
And from the health and fitness standpoint, and from what I've heard several times, is it's a great saying. I love it, and it speaks to me. But he who has himself as a coach has an idiot for a coach. And it's not always the truth, but it speaks on so many different levels too. So because you can't see the forest from the trees quite usually.
Yeah, the thing is that like I can coach myself to a certain point, but when something comes up for me that I haven't dealt with previously, so like say it was my physical health, right? Say something showed up for me that I've never ever dealt with before. The chances are I could unwind it, like because I know the physical human body so well. But is that the quickest, least resistant path to me getting where I want to go? It's just not, is it really? Like in that area, if that was to show up, I'd hire my mentor because he's a genius. And so the thing is that for me, it's always looking at, like you said, someone outside of you can give an opinion. And it doesn't have to be, it's not that we have a coach and everything our coach tells us we say yes to, because it's not about that. It's about having a voice and resonating with certain bits and taking that away and what works with. And then some of the other stuff that doesn't quite work for you at that time because of awareness or whatever it is, the point of life you're in, you park that for a little while. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Definitely.
So I wanted to go ahead and kind of shift gears a little bit, move into our more rapid fire questions. So I know you live on an island, but if you lived on a deserted island, what would the 3 books would be that you would take with you?
The book that probably shifted my experience in life the most is a book called The Power of Now.
Okay.
By Eckhart Tolle. And if you had asked me 2 years ago, I'd have never said that. I would have said clinical functional medicine edition 2, which is a very good book, by the way. But for me, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle was something that really raised my awareness. I actually read it during a night where, this is funny, where I was basically testing a new supplement, and it interacted with a food I ate, and I just couldn't sleep all night. And I ended up basically going downstairs not to disturb Marta's sleep. And I just read the whole Power Now pretty much overnight. And Marta always jokes that she woke up to a different husband. So for me, like if you're in a place of that kind of understanding or awareness, the Power Now is like my go-to for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can get into that mindset, because not everybody's ready for that book.
Of course.
if you're ready, like if you read it and you start resonating and you're like, holy crap, like I
Yeah.
found it,
Yeah.
like it can change your life. And I actually listened to the audiobook version,
Yeah.
and Eckhart reads a bunch of it himself, and like when
Yeah.
he's talking, the guy sounds like a total peace. Like
Yeah, it does.
like it's amazing. So like listening to him and like hearing it, it was just it changed my world. So I'm right
Yeah.
with you.
I
I
think
give it as a gift now to everybody I meet.
yeah, it is, and it's a phenomenal one as well. I think another really good book for me. I suppose it's weird because I'm like the biggest like biochemistry, physiology geek in the world, and I'm talking about more spiritual mindset books. But these are generally the ones that have made the biggest impact in my life. So it's just my honest kind of way of looking at it. Another one that made a really big impact for me, and if they're quite new to a place of what's possible and understanding what's possible in life, then there is a book by Pam Grout. It's called E-squared.
Huh.
Okay,
And
I'm
what's
not familiar with that one.
And it's basically a bunch of experiments to prove that there is something outside of us as a physical human that's going on that we can't explain. And it's basically like 9 experiments. And
now, is it
it's
experiments you perform yourself, like a
yeah,
workbook?
absolutely. Yeah, you do
Okay.
them all yourself. And it's kind of like proving to yourself that there's something else other than you, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So she's very qualified physicist, like hugely qualified lady, and realised in her life that certain things weren't going quite how she wanted. So she then started experimenting and started looking at people, researching, reaching out to people. And what happened was basically this book. And she now has E cubed as well, which is like the further experiments and stuff. But E squared is a really good book for like an intro for people.
Very cool.
And this is to help you kind of like step outside yourself and
It's
like is it
basically,
similar to
I'll
like Power of Now, where you're like you can step back and you're like
it's
Claude is
definitely
angry right
not as
now.
deep.
Yeah,
Like Power Now is deep, right?
It's
You
kind of like
have to
woo
be,
woo a little bit.
yeah, exactly. It's very. But for the people who are not woo woo,
Yeah,
the E squared is a really good book.
awesome.
yeah, and I sorry to cut you off there. I think a lot has to do with where we are. I know it's been my understanding, and I would tend to agree with this, that the physical musculoskeletal body is a great place to start.
Yep.
And then addressing nutritional issues, and then looking at more of the spiritual or the mindset is a great progression to get people to become the optimum human, which is
It's basically how to pull it all together, because me and Mart are like, my side, I suppose, of the genius of my side is the physical body. So I'm looking for unidentified inflammation, infections, parasites, viruses, the very physical, tangible stuff, if that makes sense, which
absolutely.
is a very important part, right? Over and above just eating single ingredient food, which we all know we should do. And Marta's genius is obviously the emotional, physical connection in the beliefs and how they connect to the body and how they affect our physiology. So they kind of work together. But, most people come to us, and I'm assuming you guys are the same, at the awareness of the physical body, which is perfect. Because if that's where they start and that's what they feel good about, we always talk about, or Marta always talks about momentum. And momentum never stops. So the thing is, some people have built momentum in a way that they've ended up with disease and then disease. And then the body's, got this downward momentum. But it only takes a 1 degree shift to start changing that momentum back the other way, which would be just choosing into better food or more consistent sleep or de-stressing or hydration or whatever it might be.
But it's interesting how you mentioned that you've gone from like more the physiological and physical side to now stuff that's a little bit further, more like I don't always like using the word spiritual, but like stuff like spirituality or just being aware or mindfulness, whatever you want to call it. But I find that happens with a lot of coaches who stay in the game longer than a year or 2 or 3.
Agreed.
A lot of people, they just find there's more to it. and I find you're kind of reluctant to admit like, hey, this is like where I'm looking right now. But the truth is, like for me, I was kind of like freaked out, like all this chakra stuff and like and breathing exercises, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell? This is all bullshit. And now I'm realizing like, this is the next step. Like I know the physical, I know the nutrition. This is like, I don't know if it's the final layer. I don't know it's beyond it, communicating with aliens or whatever. But like,
I'm in
it's
for that. It sounds cool.
hey,
Right?
me too. As long as there's no probing. I mean, Brian probably is okay with that. I'm not so open. Um, I keep attacking Brian.
You will be, Claude. You will be open.
Yeah, you'll probably be the one like Mr. Burns in that Simpsons episode, running around, glowing in the dark. Anyway, total tangent. But yeah, like it's I think a natural progression, because once we go from one step to the other, it's like, wow, there's a whole other world here, and your mind affects your actions, it affects yourself in so many ways. So I think you're totally on the right path.
And also the thing is that people always say to me, well, where's the proof? And I'm a science geek, right? That's pretty much what I do, the clinical nutrition, all this kind of stuff. I'm a geek. But people always say to me, oh, so where's the proof? Where does this happen? I'll tell you a really interesting study. So a very new, well, it's not new, it's been around about 10, 15 years, but the FDA have now allowed it to be seen, is basically about food sensitivities, because everyone talks about allergies, IgE, or intolerances where you don't have an enzyme or not enough stomach acid. But not many people actually have a very accurate way of dealing with sensitivities, which is kind of IgA, IgM, all this kind of stuff, IgG. And they took two groups of people who had identical food sensitivities, okay? And then they split them into, and one group were told that the food sensitivities they had were very dangerous, and that they're bad for the health, and long term this could do X, Y, and Z. And the other group, same sensitivities, were told, under isolation, by the way, were told that basically, no, nothing to worry about. It's just a test, we don't even know if it's accurate, blah, 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 blah. And then they were all fed the foods. And what they then tested was the mediators, which basically mediators are what regulate levels of inflammation in the body and what we produce immune cells from. And they found that the people who were told that the food was going to be bad for them had 67% increased mediators in their blood.
That is amazing.
Right? And that's physical. That's a physical study proof.
Well, if you look at the placebo effect, it's essentially essentially along the same lines. So the mind is super powerful. And I was actually at a lecture by a naturopath, Dr. Mark Bubbs, and he was saying about how eggs, everybody was saying eggs are terrible for you, everybody's allergic to eggs. And he's saying there's a few different factors that lead into it looking like you're allergic to eggs, but not actually being allergic to eggs. And after that, all of a sudden when I would eat eggs, I'd be fine.
It's very much a viewpoint about it. There's so many different aspects to why someone will or won't have an issue with food.
Yep. It's mind over matter sometimes, right?
Yeah, well, in as a way of putting it, yes.
So I wanted to ask you another question. What is the last or what is a recent purchase under $100 or euros, as it may be, that has really benefited your life?
$100. What would it be?
For Brian, it's this new shirt he got. He looks super ripped in it. And he shows up on the strip, and he looks great.
It's the styrofoam Superman shirt.
Yeah, I have a few of those.
I need to get one of those, except like a Ninja Turtles one.
I think, I don't know. I'll probably say one of the books.
Okay.
Because I'm generally kind of into that stuff at the moment. Like buying wise, I think also experiences. I'd probably say like a meal out with some friends.
Okay.
I suppose if you portion my side of it, it would have been under $100. So
Right
I think
on.
that whole experience, because I think we don't often spend enough time with people that inspire us or lift us up or challenge our realms of what's possible or this kind of stuff. So I'd probably say that.
I like
social interaction is really it's overlooked nowadays because everybody's on Facebook and they've got their heads in their phones and all this crap.
Yep.
And actually getting out, speaking with people, laughing, it's huge. And
Yep.
I mean that's a fantastic answer.
It really is. I definitely agree.
Yeah, it's outside the box and it's spot on. So
Just remember, Claude, there is no box. So a couple more questions wrapping up.
documentary question. Okay, I'll ask it.
Go ahead,
have you watched any recent documentaries, or have you seen any documentaries that have changed your life or interested you? Because right now we're on the hunt to expand our minds and our audience's minds. So, what's like a favorite documentary of yours?
Oh, wow. It's going to sound, well, it's not going to sound weird. It's just a choice I've had in life. But me and Marta have not had a TV for like 4 years, maybe, something like that. Or no newspapers or anything like that. So I suppose it would probably be some sort of online video, I'm guessing on YouTube or something like that. It really depends on like how far out there you want to go. Like there's some pretty far out stuff.
However far you want to go.
Okay. Well, let's go really far then, because this
Let's do it,
stretching. Man. So there's a guy called Bashar, and basically it's a channel. That's the easiest way to put it. So there is a gentleman called Daryl Aiken, and he basically channels, whether we believe it or not, this guy called Bashar through him. And if you wanted the most no bullshit, straight talking person about how to pull your life back together, like that stuff, like they're 10-15 minute videos on YouTube. That stuff is way out there for people's awareness. And
how do you spell his name? Daryl Aiken?
Yeah, so Bashar is BASHAAR, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty far out there stuff.
I'll hunt for it. Is it sort of like the Shia LaBeouf video? Have you seen that, where he's like, "Don't let your dreams be dreams," and he's freaking out all over the place? Or is it a little bit more reserved?
Straight talking, I'd probably say.
Right.
Like he's very straight talking. Like if the way I say to people when I introduce them to Bashar, or Marta introduces them to Bashar, is forget the whole idea of a channel, forget the whole idea that there's something coming through someone else and he's speaking and all this kind of stuff. Just put all your attention on what someone's saying. Because like people are asking questions around, law of attraction, or asking questions around why their health isn't good. And he very, very specifically tells them in an easy, but straight to the point way, why. Like, for instance, when people say, I just really want to get rid of insert X disease, the language is saying the opposite, right? So what they're saying is that, someone's moving further towards a disease by saying, I want to get rid of. What you're saying is the brain hears a command, right? I want X disease. So it's taking the disease even out of it. It's like, I'm getting healthier even every day. Do you see what I mean? So it's very much down the route of understanding how we use our language, where we place our focus, things show up in life.
For sure, because I've heard that the mind does not respond well to like a negative command. So it's like, I will not eat bad food, or I will not eat junk food, doesn't work as well as I will make healthier choices.
Exactly. And it's also, we do a lot of work with language with clients, and I am statements are very powerful. And a lot of people use I am statements in their negatives. So I'm a dick, or I'm an idiot, I'm blah, 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 blah. They talk in a way that we would never talk to our worst enemy, to ourselves.
Right.
This is true.
But I am statements also work the other way. Is that, I'm getting stronger every day. Or it's, because a lot of people, they go from one extreme to another. Like, I hate myself to I love myself. For 99% of the people on the planet, it's way too big to believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, what's the first step?
For sure. And would you consider kind of those like as affirmations? I know it's kind of a buzzword right now.
The thing is that affirmations work perfectly fine, as long as this is what people miss. So when people go for affirmations, what they believe is that they're saying something and automatically it will happen because they're saying it. But what people, like I spoke about earlier, forget is that they already have programmed associations to certain words, events, sentences. So, like, for instance, if someone says, I love myself more every day, but their association with love is abandonment or sacrifice or pain, then all they're going to reaffirm to themselves is that's what they want more of. So that's really where the definition comes from of where Marta's genius is really of helping people break down and understand and pick, if they do want to do an affirmation, something that serves them. Like, if they can't choose that they love themselves yet, could they say a statement like, I'm looking after myself more every day? And the one thing that we always tell people is the body never lies. So, like, when we say something and we don't believe it, like you get that feeling in your stomach or you just feel heavy, right?
Yep.
That's your body telling you it doesn't believe it. Like, if you say something that makes you feel really good, how do we feel? We always feel light. So that's the easiest way to go by something to see whether we believe something or not.
Yeah, the body's often a lot smarter than we are.
Way.
Our conscious mind, anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what would your definition of the optimum human be, or what would be some attributes of the optimum human?
Optimum human. I would say someone who has an awareness around mind and body. So I don't believe perfect exists. Like, it just doesn't. We all aim for it, but it doesn't exist. So that's why people generally live in a pattern of failure. So I believe people who are in a place of awareness and that they are looking to do something that they feel serves them internally and doesn't require an outside validation. That's, for me, is someone who would be an optimal human.
Awesome. Love it.
Now, we often ask, who would you like to see on our show? And I think your answer may be a little biased, but let's say you can choose two people.
All right, cool. Well, I would say to go deeper onto some of the stuff that I've kind of brushed over today, like on the surface of it. Marta, my wife, is like, it's just her genius. She's incredible. So yes, that's the biased answer. If there was another person that I could hook you up with to see if I could get you on board with, if he had time,
it can be anyone. Like, yes.
I'd probably, to be honest, I'd probably pick our mentor.
Oh, awesome.
One of, anyway, on the physical
their name
side.
is?
It's a gentleman called Raj, and he is, how I describe him, as the best known unknown person on the planet.
So if I Google Raj, I'll find him, right?
No, not a chance. He doesn't even have a website.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Okay.
And he's treated, last count, I think it was over 7,000 patients.
Wow.
We'll have to get him in here then, for sure.
I can hook you guys up and see if he can find some time, because the guy is obviously
uber busy, I'm
crazy
sure.
busy. But I'd be happy to put you guys in contact to see if he could work something out, because that guy, like, from the physical side, that's the guy that I pretty much learn a majority of my skill set trade from, if that makes sense, not the books or the qualifications.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We'd definitely appreciate that. And love to share the most well-known unknown man in the world.
Yeah.
So, Cliff, definitely appreciate your time today, man. It has been awesome, and
Where can we find out more about you? Sorry to cut you off, Brian.
Absolutely.
So where can we find you, online or on Facebook or
Yeah,
Twitter?
well, we're just going for a big rebranding in ourselves. So basically, the easiest way, like, it sounds really weird, but the easiest way for people to really get hold of me and Marta and see what we do, because we basically live how we speak, if that makes sense. So, like, if it's on Facebook, it's just Cliff Wilde or Marta Wilde. But we also have a free group on Facebook called the Unlimited Life Project.
Okay.
And they're generally it. We have websites and stuff, but to be honest, they're still being rebranded and everything, so there's probably not much point sending them to there.
Fair enough. Go where your attention is.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll link to the group in our show notes.
Absolutely. And just so people know, it's Wilde, WILDE.
Perfecto, yes.
Appreciate your time, man. It's interesting. The podcast originally was going to be very physical, and so many of our guests so far have been very on the mental emotional side, and so it's kind of taken on a life of its own. But it's been awesome so far, and I really appreciate your time today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. It's been a blast, and once we have your wife on, maybe we'll get you on as a tag team.
Yeah, that'll you'd have to save some time.
Fair enough. We've been waiting for to do a 2 or 3 hour Joe Rogan style podcast. So
yeah, we'll split it up into parts to not make people too nuts. So, but yeah, thank you again for coming on. Yeah, like us. It's been a blast, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
All right, cool. Thanks, Cliff.
Thanks for listening to the Optimum Human Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to head on over to iTunes and give a 5-star rating and review, which will help spread the word to more awesome listeners just like you. Head on over to theoptimumhuman.com and subscribe to the free newsletter and get the Optimum Human's Blueprint to the Optimum Life. Download it instantly. Thanks for listening.